The sun rising from the river, nature's miracle once more will light the world. But this light is not for those men still lost in an old black shadow. Won't you help me to believe that they will see a day, a brighter day, when all the shadows will fade away. That day I'll cry that I believe, that I believe. Oh, my love, high above us, the sun now embraces nature, and from nature we should learn that all can start again, as the stars must fade away.
Welcome everybody once again to Safe Place Podcast, and we've just watched that video there, and it's quite a dark video in terms of where mankind's going, isn't it, Craig, with technology?
Yeah, we see a lot of these now, and a beautiful little animation that everybody can relate to. However, I always think we don't really do fuck all about that. We don't actually see that and think of ways that we can improve, and how we are all just stuck on our mobile phone and wrapped up in this society, this matrix of fears and pain and suffering, really.
Do you know what's really sad about it? So you see all of the people on the mobile phones, don't you? Whether it's the woman that's jumping off the building and everybody's just watching it through their mobile phones. There's a burning building in the background, and there's a woman there with the camera filming, with the burning background in the background with her in shot. And it is dark in a sense, because when you think about our children, and I've been guilty of this, if I've been scrolling through social media and one of my kids has come up to me and they want something from me, I've been prone to, in the past, try and wave it off just so I can carry on scrolling or reading what it is that I'm reading on social media. And the sad thing is, through the eyes of the child, they've got this semi-attentive parent. If you imagine being a child looking at your mum or dad, and in a sense they don't know any different, because if one thing that's incredible about kids, like I've got Jonah tonight he's gone out for the first time trick-or-treating, and he's 2.5, and the missus sent me a picture of him with his two brothers, and he's in a little Halloween costume, and he's standing there with his two brothers in the background with their Halloween costumes on, and he's there just looking at the camera. And I said to the missus, he has no idea what Halloween is. He has no idea that he's going out trick-or-treating. He doesn't have any understanding as to why his brothers, one's dressed as a killer pumpkin and one's dressed as a killer. Yet he's just going along for the ride. He's just going along for the ride. Now think that they're going along for the ride with us, and we've got this unattentive parent that's really engaged, conditioned and addicted to this feeling of value or significance, or even escaping their own mundane world and looking at the world through the eyes of somebody that's going through a car crash, or someone that's getting attacked in the street, or someone that's acting like a clown in public, that they're distracting themselves from their own lives to look for a type of chemistry in the brain that makes them feel slightly better than they do in their normal situation with their own lives. And this child is trying to get your attention, and they are attention-seeking little bastards. They drive you nuts half the time because they are so needy. But they're only mirrors to ourselves in a sense that we're ultimately needed. That's why we're engaged and lost in the mobile phone. Now, how much is it that child looking at us as mummy and daddy's distracted? How much is that conditioning them to move away from needing mum and dad and becoming absorbed and distracted in the technology that we are?
It's creating the future selves, is it? And when you said that, I thought it's not just that type of one personality where you have the distracted mum or dad on the phone. There's somebody who can be distracted by alcohol, for instance, or there could be somebody who's besotted by the mum far more than the kids and had the kids to please the mum, and they're infatuated with the mum only, and kids will pick up on this. And then you have the future creations of that where you are unconscious to it. And in the past I've been critical of bad parents creating the little shits of the future, and the unconscious parents creating the unconscious parents. And I know that you get an ego defense, but it's like, just remember, this little child, your child, is going to absorb everything through you. And if you're not the perfect role model, as perfect as you can be, which is very difficult because you're prone and conditioned to look at the mobile phone more than your own kid, to not understand how to not react upon a fear. If your child falls over and starts crying and screaming, you want him to shut up, where he's in pain. That's what he should be doing. So we're actually unaware ourselves of how childish and stupid we are.
Yes, it is. It does seem like that the parent is it always looks incredible, don't it, to see someone from their outward experience, because you look at them and you see an older person, but actually what you see is a vulnerable, needy child inside every adult. Is that we're all these little kids, and what is it that technology gives us? And the only way I can try and understand it is to try and look inside. Why do I search through Facebook, or why do I search through TikTok? And I'm just looking for better and better experiences at the most cost-effective output from myself. It's just that when you think about it, we've always had a brain that's been addicted to escaping our current state. If you looked at television before social media, if you looked at the radio before television, if you looked at the world of literature and books, the human has always wanted to escape the reality through a narrative that creates and stimulates the imagination, and through the imagination it stimulates our emotions, and they're cost effective. For instance, when you're reading a book and you hear about the great life of the person going through the book, or the difficulty of the person going through the book, you instantly become them through that experience. So those emotions and those stimulus that you're looking for, you're getting just through a tiny bit of expenditure of your energy, which is just to read. And our appetite for it, to feel better in the moment, has evolved to the point now where we get 30-second long TikTok videos, and the incredible thing is it will keep going down until our mind is just like, I need 1 second videos. I need everything to happen in 1 second.
And there's also, which is quite scary, because I can't remember this being around when I first started to watch social media. Social media reels of videos were short, but they were real. They were genuine pranks and people being scared and people falling over. Now I see that the videos are actually false. They are actors pretending to go up to somebody in a supermarket and put a big bin on their head, and this person acts all stupid like he doesn't know it was him.
Yeah.
And it's like thousands of comments, thousands of views, and not anybody has actually engaged with the fact that that wasn't real. So it's now like we're hooked on staged.
Yeah, and I don't think they even care. You know why? Because for 40 or 50 years, there was a half an hour long TikTok video, and it was called Coronation Street in East End. That's right. Where people who had so much drama in their own lives and things to deal with would escape through watching the drama of other people's lives for half an hour. It's like, you've been through enough already. The last thing you need to do is to actually get lost in somebody else's drama. You've got your own life to fix.
So we have one real reality happening, and then we are almost hypnotised into enjoying a separate reality that we know isn't real, has no substance, has no quality, and we will talk about those characters. How many times have you heard people talk about those characters saying, oh my God, Baldwin's dead, they murdered him, can't believe they bumped him off, he's been in the programme for 10 years, and it's like, he's not a neighbour, he's not flesh and blood, he's an actor, and he'll be in The Bill next week, he'll be in Casualty.
It's incredible that we're so socially orientated as creatures that we watch these actors playing these roles on the TV and then we become attached to them like they're a part of our own family.
Fucking ridiculous, man.
It is.
What are you talking about? When you think about what you talk about, words and this life is very important. You're here for a very short amount of time. You've got to make the most of it.
And dare I say, here for a reason. For a reason to try and put the best part of you out into the world. If you look at the attention thing that I was speaking about earlier on, attention. It seems that our attention is ever becoming more hungry for faster and faster experiences through stimulus that create emotions that make us feel high or negative. A negative experience, in a sense, is just as high as a positive one. But think about it. You're going through this stimulus that's making you feel good, and it's coming at easier and easier context. Before you had to read a book, it took a bit of effort. Then you'd listen to a radio, less effort. Then you sit back and watch the TV, less effort. Then you scroll through TikTok and then it's less effort. You're getting fed your stimulus easier and easier and easier without any effort. Now, the one thing that's mostly important about this is that when you realise that you've been doing it at the least energy expenditure of yourself, and it's actually produced the most negative outcome in your life, the life of yourself and your children, maybe you can begin to start to realise that the best way to build the emotions and the stimulus that you need in your life is a project that you work on over 24 hours, where you go to bed thinking, right, when I get up tomorrow, I'm going to get little Charlie out of bed and I'm going to go downstairs and I'm just going to go crazy with him in the living room, make him feel $1 million. Now, it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take expenditure of energy. But at the end of the day, you're going to be able to go to sleep, knowing that you've made a difference to somebody's life.
Well, I don't think that's on their naturally on their agenda. I think you have to build up to realise that, you know what, I've been wasteful in the past. I've done bad mistakes. I'm the way that I am now because of unconsciousness in the past. So I'm trying to be conscious as much as I can. And then you're still pretty unconscious because as soon as a fear comes up, you are reacting unconsciously. As soon as a wasp comes by you, you don't want to teach your child to fear anything, but as soon as a wasp comes near you, you're like a mad person screaming, and that person only knows to fear every insect ever again. Now, people watching this will think, what are we talking about? What's the problem? Why can't I watch TikTok for 3 hours? Why do I need that little dream like you've just suggested? Now, I've thought of a few things that I want to say that's wrong with this reality that we're talking about. Right, I've got a few points to go through.
What do you mean wrong with this reality, the world of technology and stimulus and ever searching through social media? Is that what you mean?
This, not just that, the whole of 2021 where we are. Okay. Every aspect of reality that exists today, which is what I'm going to break down for you. First point is, for me, it looks like that everybody is lying to themselves about this reality, and also everybody else is lying to themselves. So what you have is a bunch of people lying to each other, and I mean this by not accepting and being truthful in the moment of existence of how they really feel. If you ask somebody if they're okay, they won't tell you, I wanted to kill myself after the 8th beer last night, even if that was a reality, because there's a stigma attached to that. They can't call out for help. It's very difficult.
But the flip side to it is that people are speaking more and more about it because they actually feel that it's culturally it's changing now and being acceptable to be able to communicate that you are suffering with suicidal thoughts. There is a change occurring, isn't there?
And then there's a horrible lying to themselves about that, because some people can take that and use it as in like they don't even want to kill themselves. They're doing it for attention. There's lots of like added things onto there.
Yeah.
So once you start to say, right, what do you truly believe in? What is your philosophy? When you say it, there's a part of you that's thought of it before you've even said it. So you don't even know if that is the truth. It's just something that you've learnt. It's where you are at the present moment. So it doesn't mean that you're actually right. So in my reality, what I see is a lot of people actually are lying to themselves about being happy. Like, do you know when you go to a certain place and you'll be in a queue and you'll just get served by a really miserable person? You can get into a little awkward argument with this person because they've peed you off. And the reality is, let's look at the facts. They're 45 and they work on a shop counter, making lots of money for another company, a big organisation, and they're on £8.50 an hour and they're struggling. It just doesn't even get them a holiday once a year.
And when you imagine that they're in that 8-hour job in a constant negative state, social media is the only place that they can go to that makes them feel better emotions.
Yes, an escape, isn't it? An
Yes.
escape from reality, but also that toxic behaviour that you view and just think that they're miserable because they're just a miserable person. This person is just as miserable as you being miserable with this person, because you're in there thinking everybody should just do everything I want, and that they should not be in that job if they're not happy with that job.
Oh, God, I hate shit like that.
But it's like, where can they go? Where can any of us go? Who's really doing what they actually want to do? Their dream, their passion,
Yeah, no one.
Purpose.
It's no wonder why depression's higher than it's ever been. Do you know why? Because most people's lives are shit. My life can be diabolically shit. Everyone's working for pittance, for nothing. They barely can afford holidays. They can barely be conscious enough to understand how to avoid the negative output of having a brain that constantly looks for stimulus, which means you're always going to feel a deficit in some way. It's a dark time, but it's also an opportunity, isn't it? It's brilliant in a sense.
And all I'm saying is, people don't say this. People say, look at me, look at all my selfies on social media. I'm having a great fucking life. And it's just like, you're a builder. You drive in a white van every day and you're up at 6 o'clock for a gaffer who's got the mansion. You ain't got a mansion. You can barely afford your council flat rent. So it's like lying to yourselves. Now, I think that it's not about you going and chasing all your dreams, getting a spirituality, a law of attraction behind you, and like, I need to go and get materialism. Materialism's bullshit. It's never going to bring you any comfort, just like those TikTok videos are they're going to bring you a short fix of adrenaline and serotonin, but it's not going to be long term. What you need to understand is accept that you're unhappy in the reality and realise that the only way you can actually be happy in that reality is if you start to imagine that you're happy in the reality.
How do you know that people aren't happy in the reality, though?
Because I see pure fucking ignorance wherever I go, unconscious, horrible attitudes, and it goes on to my second point now. The second thing that I see in reality, everyone is a selfish bastard and everybody else is selfish. Now, when you've got everybody in the world being selfish, there's a dilemma there, because for you to enjoy your reality, you need to see people, you need to interact with people. But if they're selfish as well as you being selfish, you're lost in a world of transactions that are never going to satisfy you.
Okay, yeah, and I understand that. But again, the way I would see it is that when we look at people being selfish, I don't think people are selfish. I think that deep down, ultimately, all they want to try and do is fulfill and find something of meaning or purpose in their life. Now, if you're that girl on TikTok who's got her breasts out and she's got 250,000 subscribers and she actually feels like she's somebody now, that's going to be her meaning and fulfillment. And as a byproduct of that, she's going to feel fulfilled by it. And because she hasn't the ability to see it more deeply and realise it's just been seen as an object and she's nothing more to anyone than just a cheap masturbation, she's never going to go into that suffering that you're talking about. So what I think is going on right now is that you're projecting your deep suffering, which is you perceive everybody as being selfish.
Well, look at the okay, let's just look at what you've just said then about, okay, that person's not selfish. They want to fulfill a need for themselves.
Yes, and that is as normal and as natural as a flower leaning towards the sunlight in the morning.
However, the true fulfillment of self can only come in acceptance that everybody is also part of that, the other person.
Yes.
So this is where...
But would you argue that also means that it doesn't mean it's selfish? If the fundamental laws of having an experience of existence means that you try and lean towards what preserves you, for a human mind to look at that and say it's selfish is actually a misunderstanding of something that's very natural and okay to exist within us all.
Well, let's just fucking even go deeper than that argument. Let's steel man that argument and make it stronger and say, you're God now. You're God consciousness. You are unified one dream, and that's all that exists. But what does God want to do? He wants to share it. He wants to share he wants to share it with the world so there's other people that can enjoy this state of finger.
So what I hear you saying there is what God wants to do is, as you project onto God what you think it is that God wants to do, is you just want your experience to be better.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And for the vast majority of, not the vast majority, that's incorrect, for a good portion of people, they're already there. Now, for me, it's like if we look at, because I have been there and will still go back there to where you are now. Absolutely, we're all self-preserving animals. But look at the whole of nature. Bees are doing it. Flowers are doing it.
And this is
forests are doing it.
I'm also not saying it as in you're a selfish prick.
Yeah.
I'm saying it as in it seems like we're set up to be this way.
But you also have to understand that when you use the concept selfish, instantly we're looking at we're trying to not hit people's defences, aren't we? The best way to communicate to people ultimately is to make them feel accepted at every step of the way.
Or is it? Or is it to make them feel bad about what they do? I mean, isn't fear the biggest game changer in the world? I know somebody recently who was anti-vax all the way, been struck down with COVID on an oxygen mask. He's come out and he's getting the jab straight away, and he's done away with materialism to boot. Maybe the fear factor is a bigger mover than just saying everyone accept behaviour.
Fear is a factor in terms of how it navigates and herds fucking human beings like shepherds herding sheep. But ultimately, outside of fear is existence, isn't it? Fear is ultimately something that can navigate people down a certain path. But look, when you say selfish, if you own what you mean by that, if you're authentic with what you mean by that, is it feels hurtful to you that people act out that self-preservation mechanism.
I'm disappointed that I can't even do that.
That's brilliant.
And you know what? Selflessness doesn't seem to exist in this reality.
And you know what, mate? Perfect. Absolutely perfect. You are as perfect can be. And so are all the people that are acting unconsciously selfishly, the word that I don't like to use. Look at a forest. Why do trees grow tall in the forest? Because they compete for sunlight. Does another tree turn around to another tree and go, you've grown 6 more inches than me and you're getting 30% more sunlight? That is selfish. Will that do the other tree any good to hear it? No. Why is the mechanism not there for the tree to be able to do that? I don't know. All I know is that it's going on all around us. The laws of existence dictates that we've all got this mechanism within us to try and sustain how we feel, to improve how we feel. We're all going towards the light, looking at people through technology now. It's no different, or I perceive it to be no different, but as I'm aware that I actually don't know jack shit about the world, the more I learn, the less I know, is that it seems like most people are like moths to the flame, that we judge a moth as being stupid for flying into the flame and burning, and everybody's stuck on this device, lost in a world as the disconnection grows until it reaches a point of ejaculation where you're so disconnected from your family, and all your children have learnt for your inability to find true fulfillment is now their trauma to find their own fulfillment through the same technological fucking pursuit that you went on. It's normal. So if it's normal, it's not wrong. Now, one of the things that I want to get behind lately is the idea of hope, and that there's a bigger meaning and a bigger purpose beyond what our minds can perceive, that even goes against logic and rationality, and, believe it or not, the experience of suffering. That just because we suffer with the way we see the world at the minute, with the woman taking a picture of a burning fire behind her, the woman committing suicide and people holding up the phone, that actually is as apparent and awful as that experience is, it's actually part of the growing. It's part of the process, to a point where, if anything, we can let go of the concept of selfish and wrong and it should be better, and actually embrace the idea that this is part of the process that we're on, and embrace it, because outside of our difficulty to perceive what deeper meaning it has, there could be a reality there that's all orchestrated towards this type of music that culture's playing at the moment, which experientially feels uncomfortable to us, but it doesn't mean that it's not a fucking incredible, the outcome beyond my life, beyond my children's life, but to experience an objective, subjective relationship with the universe, that at the end of it all, there's bliss, acceptance, love, and it's probably got technology in it, it's got selfishness in it, it's got love in it, it's got everything. It's a whole harmony of all of these parts of ourselves that we reject and push away, and it's a fucking bubble. It's a bubble of love and acceptance.
A bubble of
for
beautiful
everything.
reality. The only thing that I see with that is, again, like, I'm going to throw it back at you now. Whereas you're projecting, and you're projecting actually the same as me. Just like I don't want to really survive in a world where I see it as everyone's selfish and everyone's lying to themselves and no one's really waking up, and there's a layer of sheep that won't wake up to a certain reality, and then when you wake up to a certain reality you need to wake up again and over again, to a point where you realise that every distraction, whatever distraction you choose, even meditation, shows that you're actually ill in some way, that you're fighting or resisting the beauty of life, because you're having to move your psyche somewhere else to
I would argue that that's not ill. We perceive it to be illness, but if it's happening, like everything in the world is happening all around us, it's actually part of a normal evolutionary process. And that if we look at evolution, it's wired for survival, it's wired to improve itself. And I mean, look, I'm even going to take that away, Craig. There's no point. All I think of is that my mind will never be able to know what is right, what is wrong, what should be, what shouldn't be. All I can really do is accept that there's a process taking place that took place before me, that will take place when I'm long dead, and that all I can do is interject hope into that.
And I agree with that, and it comes from a place of good experience of certain things that make you say that.
No, desperation,
Pain, suffering, whatever the journey was, and you come out this side with this dream. Unfortunately, there's someone out there who believes it's okay to rape children, and they will manipulate their way into jobs, into families, into homes, to rape as many children as they can until they get caught, and hopefully they do get caught.
And as wrong as that seems, understandably, and it can seem like a great ego defense mechanism, how with my brain and my five senses that picks up 0.00000000001% of reality, meaning, purpose, evolution, free will, how can I ever know? How can I ever be stupid enough to believe I have the ability to interject into that there's not some deeper, more profound meaning behind all of it? And it sounds like a great little fantasy in of itself.
So you're talking about some sort of karma transaction, or that is God sharing love in
I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about this. I don't know any of it.
Well, I know that a child doesn't have to get raped. I know that. I know a child never has to get abused, ever.
Well, let me tell you something that's interesting, right? I can see the shadow coming out in you there, right?
You cheeky bastard.
I know that a child doesn't ever have to get raped. Yes, I know that humanly with my mind, right? Listen to this. Because of my upbringing with a violent father, I was petrified for the idea that I could ever be that for my children. Now, when me and my partner have argued in the past, because I'm so afraid of it affecting the children, it's actually created me to be more of my father than I could ever accepted. My inability to accept my shadow, to accept what is, actually brings out the darkness in me. So, the darkness in you exists with the inability to let go of your concepts, beliefs, thoughts, expectations, and actually surrender to the idea that it's happening. And as awful as it is, we have no idea, once again, that there is not something so profound in it all.
Wow. Good story, I agree with all of that. And I believe that we're both really talking about the same thing. I mean, you can either fight or surrender. And really, the fighting for survival is the same as surrendering for survival. We see that we both
No, it's not. It's not the same. I get what you mean by that, but for me, surrender is the idea. Surrender is purely every part of you that needs, wants and desires something, to not feel something, to not think something, to not experience something. You surrender, which means you become the person being raped. You the possibility that you could be the father of the child that's being raped. It's the complete unknown. It's a surrender of self, which is fucking, for me, the only ever experience I've had in my life where I've truly surrendered, and I failed at it many times, where I found peace, where all of a sudden Andrew's mind and his beliefs and his concepts and his need to hold on and have some sort of egoic frame of reference for reality and what he wanted it to be for him to feel okay. When he let go of it, there was peace there. Now, I was going along with it, and we'll talk about this in a different podcast, the idea of one of the greatest ways to alleviate mental suffering, mental illness, is accepting change. But for me, as awful and as uncomfortable as it seems to be as a dad that will neglect his children for social media, and as uncomfortable as it is to witness everybody around me that I love neglecting themselves and their children through social media, and how it all seems like an addiction and conditioning of human beings looking to feel better in the moment, like moths, like trees, is that hopefully outside of that, there's a deeper meaning and a process beyond all of it, which ultimately leads to one thing, which is what people get lost in social media for, which is acceptance. It's a paradox. It seems uncomfortable and it seems wrong to watch, but that's just a misunderstanding of our limited perceiving minds, that actually it's all part of a beautiful process to find home, acceptance, love. It's all part of it.
And I feel that and
gobbledygook.
It's just fucking bullshit, because it's like, listen, right, I understand, I know why everybody does what they do. I have felt the pain why everybody does what they do. I get that. I even understand that the mechanism, what you're saying to let go of everything, because I don't understand the reality of what is existing, and it could all be for a bigger purpose. I get that could be possible.
Yeah.
But for me, that feeling that you have in a meditative state, or when you feel bliss, or when all the egotistical feelings are met, whatever it is, even for the person on TikTok who sells herself and sells her body and says she's attracted to older men just to get older men perving over her, and all the other people who do fake stuff and bullshit and manipulate the world and do nasty things just to get viral, to get popular, or to bully people, whatever they do, all this taking place, would you exchange all that and swap it for, if I could offer you this reality where a child never, ever gets raped again, Would you swap your bliss for that?
Well, I would say the reason why it is that the child does get raped is because of the lack of acceptance for self. I think that the reason why people are doing all these things and going through social media and getting the breasts out is because there's a lack of acceptance for self. I believe that what you're really doing by highlighting all those things is showing how you lack acceptance of self. And I think that's the number one cause through all of the stuff that's actually creating the very problem that you don't want to have in the world.
I know the monster that I am and still am in the mind.
But you're not a monster. Look, take away that identity.
No,
take away.
We are.
No. We cannot be. We cannot be the monster that you seem for us to be. We can't. How is it when you look at the whole of nature taking care of its own primal needs? Can you accept that the bee does it, the ant does it, the tree does it, the flower does it, the sun does it, the moon does it, the human does it?
Do you know what the difference is? Nature hasn't got the ability to look back at what it does and say, oh, you know what? I go out every day as the sun and I always fucking follow the moon round. Or I'm not sure if the moon's following me, to be honest. It's like it could be 50-50. But guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to surprise the moon because I'm not going out. I'm not going out because I don't feel right. I don't feel good.
We don't have the ability to do it.
We do.
You think we do.
We have history books.
You've just told me perfectly that it seems like everybody knows it, but they can't do it. So you think you're different from it all. Well, actually, in reality, you're no different from the moon, the sun, the birds, the bees, the flowers, the trees.
And I'm not separating myself from this, by the way. I'm not separating myself from this.
I'm not
going on a pedestal.
No, I know you're not, but you have unconsciously, right, separated yourself from that because you argued that nature doesn't have the ability to do that, but we as humans do.
Yes.
No, but we don't. We don't, because if you look at the evidence, we're not doing it. We might objectively look and go, no, we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I agree that we're not doing it.
But so the evidence is outside of your thoughts that we're no different from it. The reality is we are that, and that is okay. The false reality that your mind's projecting onto it is that we've got the ability to do it, and why can't we do it? Because we can't. It's not who we are at this moment. I'm not saying that it isn't us at a period in the future. Through suffering, if you want to go down that road, my argument was acceptance. Maybe that you've got to really, 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 really suffer to accept yourself. That's a good argument for finding acceptance in the end.
So this is where I disagree with this, right? If you get 17 bulls from all over the world and you wave a red flag in front of all these bulls, right, they will all charge at the red flag. It's very rare that you'll find a bull that wouldn't instinctively charge at the red flag, right?
It's very rare, but what? But not possible that all the bulls will charge at the red flag.
They are doing that as instinct.
You're disproving your old argument because you're trying to compare a human being to being able to not charge at the red flag or not go on social media or not get lost in that world of illusion.
We do have the ability to do that.
So do bulls.
What, to not charge, to not do what they always do?
If you could say that all sheep followed the same path, a farmer wouldn't need a sheepdog, right? Because...
But what I'm saying is, most of the sheep from all over the world I'm talking about will act like sheep wherever they are.
And most of the humans will as well.
And all of the humans will. Well, you've got a spiritual human that will never harm a hair on an insect's head.
Yes, he will. Do you know what? Because we've talked about it on the podcast before. You get the most spiritually beautiful young man that's preaching about concepts of love and of peace, and you get a fucking apparent low-life person that's, and I hate to do this because it's a stereotypical thing, from a council estate who's lost in, I need to make money, I don't give a shit about anyone, and you throw them both in the ocean overboard a ship in the middle of the sea and throw in one life raft, and you will see them fighting like pigs for that fucking life raft, right?
Yeah, I reject that argument.
Because the mind likes to create all of these sub-realities that don't actually exist in the real world. In the existence of the real world, we perceive it as being selfish. I see it as there's actually a universal conditioning that is abhorrent within us all, and I accept it.
You accept it.
It causes my mental will to suffer and feel uncomfortable because I want things to be better. I want people to not get hurt or abused, but I accept it because it's there and it's evident to see. Now, why do you think the universe gives a shit about what I think is right or wrong? The universe does what it does regardless of my mind. Now, I can only have faith that the universe or God has created that process because there is a process that leads to complete bliss and happiness, right? That's what I hope for, and hope is a big thing for me.
Yes, and I like that. Let's go with Andrew's model of reality. We are going to basically go with hope and say the universal God has a plan. And all toxic shit is happening for a reason. For the beautiful dream to awaken to a state where it doesn't need any of that. And we'll in the future, we'll understand that we didn't even need morals. It's all happening for a reason. Or why don't we go with this plan? Why don't we build some very, very powerful domes, make everybody who comes in sign a piece of paper where they go on some basic principles and ideology of religion that is only good for humankind and protecting the planet, and anybody who doesn't sign the treaty gets outside the dome and we fucking nuke the planet to kingdom come.
Mate? Can I tell you why? Right? Because the seasons are a great indicator for reality. Winter's dark. There's no light. The leaves fall off the trees. It's a harsh environment. And the summer is plentiful. Harvests, berries, warmth, swimming, love. Contrasts that reality incorporates both into. It incorporates the weeds and the roses. It's a synergetic, symbiotic relationship, acceptance of realising that there is no good or bad. There is just states of pure existence and beingness. That world that you describe is the very reason why humanity seems to be on its knees. Because it suppresses and represses and creates division and separation.
I agree.
And so it's the end of the road now for us.
I totally agree. It's the end of the road for humanity. There is no God coming with a plan.
Well, I would argue that God is all around us. But that's for another podcast. Thank you everybody for tuning in.